Hello guys, so if the question is what can stop a watch or make a watch run poorly, I've got a Seiko here, a Seiko 6106 that I'm about to service, one out of my own collection actually, and it doesn't run very well. It's very intermittent, can't even get a trace on the timograph, so I've just stripped off all of the calendar works and I'm now onto the motion side. I've removed the top part, which is the auto winding mechanism, and what we can see here so far is just the jewel that drives the ratchet wheel. It actually winds up the mainspring, and I'm trying to sort of demonstrate that this is the sort of stuff you see quite regular. So you either see dried oil or you see this sort of dusty particle type stuff. Now there obviously isn't enough to stop a wheel there or stop a watch there, but if we go across to here, try and get this in focus, you can see that this is the jewel for, I'm trying to think now, for the fourth wheel, which is quite a critical part of the watch, and that jewel is absolutely full. Now I'm going to try turn this up to times 40 and get a bit closer. We lose a bit of clarity because of the way I'm filming on my phone as well, which doesn't help, but there you go, you can kind of see it there. Maybe if I move it there, it's a bit clearer, isn't it? So just those little bits there are enough to completely kill this movement. If we go back, these are called Diafix, so they are jewels under a little spring. These are absolute killer for me and my little amateur skills to undo and clean. I don't know why I just turned that back, so let's take it back to 40. So they're not so bad, you know, the muck doesn't get under there as bad, but what you tend to get is dried oil. Here's another one. This is driving the escape wheel. There's a bit too much dazzle there, isn't there? And there you go, you see the watch has just ran a little bit and then stopped. And that is the jewel as on top of the balance. Let's go back to here. So the hairspring itself looks pretty good at the moment. So and there we go, if I just tap it you can see it again. Yeah, it stopped again. So this thing's on full wind, so it's got full power and something stopping it, and it'll be a combination of the dirt that I can't find it now. So with the combination of the dirt in there and a few other places as well. Also on the underside of the watch we have the same sort of jewels. They're not as bad, but there's still some gunk in them. So I just thought I'd show you that, guys. That's you know, it's pretty obvious really, but it doesn't take much. It's only fine particles really. These things are, you know, they're very accurate and you know, very precise bit of engineering. But when the tolerances are so tight like that, you know, a few microns of dirt is enough to really interfere with everything. So there we go, hopefully that's a little bit of an insight for you. Okay, I've taken the balance off as well now, and I'm just having a quick look at this. What we can see if we focus it here is the pivot at the top and the impulse jewel, which is obviously the jewel. And what we want to look at on a mainspring is the centricity. I can't really show you with this. I'm going to try something smaller, so this oiler. So you're looking at the distance between each coil all the way around and making sure that they all look nice and circular, because if any of them are slightly out, it can mean a whole number of things, but generally it will make the watch will run usually quite fast. Ignore the bit here where it goes around then into its stud and the regulator. This is the regulator arm, so when you're moving this back and forth it's making the spring longer and shorter to change the timing of the watch, and then it's fastened in the stud there. And these, certainly on this one, are almost impossible for me to change. I'm not skilled enough. You can pull that little pin out, but if you see that pin with your naked eye, this is the, let's show you the pin here, that little pin, that is tiny, and it's easy to get it out, but it's very difficult to get it back in, certainly when you're trying to actually put the hairspring also in the hole to hold it. So I need a lot more practice on that. However, that is how I examine my hairsprings. So I'm always looking for, see if there's any dirt. Sometimes you find hairs and oil and grease which stick to the spring itself. It's always good to examine before cleaning, so you can see how good or bad it is. So after cleaning, you know that you've either done a good job or a bad job. And I'm also going to always examine the pivot there, make sure the pivot still exists, that it's not missing, and then again it's free from dirt and grime and damage. So on this watch, the hairspring looks good. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the top of the barrel. It's still under the train bridge, so it's still held in place correctly. And you grease this with a different type of oil to what you do the wheels, and so it's a little bit of a thicker grease, or oil should we say, but obviously it congeals, and so I've taken off the ratchet wheel on the top, and this is what you see all the time really. And again, you know, you look at that, it's gone hard, and so that's actually going to have the negative effect of what you want oil for. The oil you want is to, you know, ease the friction, so keep the thing moving nice and smoothly, whereas with that there, that will actually slow it down, which can also then slow down the whole train wheels. I mean, it's just going to, you know, stop the power from the spring being released the way it should do. So again, that all needs to come off, all needs to be cleaned. Just another telltale sign of what we're looking for here on, you know, what stops a watch. So with the train wheel bridge removed, it's a bit easier now to see all that gunk and dirt that you can see that's just gathered around that hole. Everything else, you know, will all come apart and be cleaned. And there again is the grease there that you can see. Let's just turn it over, show you the underside. So grease on the underside as well, as you can see, so that's going to be interfering. Excuse my fingers. And again in that jewel, you're just seeing it from the reverse side now, but I dare say there's some on the underside as well. So there we go, let's continue. Okay, so this is the barrel. The barrel contains the mainspring itself. Now I'm not going to open the mainspring just yet, but again it's just to show you that there's that grease again that we've been talking about. So you can see it all over the top. This is the mainspring arbor, so that's actually connected to the spring inside. So you know, this is what holding all the power and holding the spring, so it needs to move nice and freely and not have all of that gunk. On the reverse of these, you just get a type of pivot, which again is the bottom of that, and once again lots more dirt, so we need to clean all that off. Okay, now the underside of the so this is the main plate, so this is what everything sits on, and that's where the barrel was, so expected to see all the grease there. This is the fourth wheel, which had the really dirty crown, and you can see that the pinion on the top is covered in gunk. Third wheel has fared better. That's the escape there, and the escape looks pretty good too. But down there you see that's a hair, and this is usually what I tend to find in here. You find hairs wrapped around the escape wheel, which interferes with everything. There is the pallet fork, and again that's got lots of dirt on the end of one side. I can't see the other side, it's obscured. Perhaps if we remove the fourth wheel we get a better look at it. So yes, that looks to me that there's a lot of congealed oil. Now the last thing you want really is oil on your pallet forks. Good practice, you have to oil very slightly on the ends just to give it a bit of slip as the escape wheel goes round, but too much else has the adverse effect, and perhaps, I don't know, but perhaps that's what's happened here, is whoever serviced this last, which I guess was probably a long time ago, has over oiled the pallet, and the oil is congealed, and now you'll have congealed oil somewhere on the escape as well. So all that is adding to slow the movement down and make it not run nice and smoothly like it should do. The jewel you see here on the top, so this one is the pallet fork jewel, which is self-explanatory. What you don't want to see here is any oil. This is one thing that you do not oil in a service. You leave it as is. So you want to look to see if there's any oil in there, and I don't think there is. I think that's possibly just a reflection. And the hole that you see at the bottom there, it's pointless looking at it from this side really, but that will be a diashock jewel. So this is where the balance itself sits in that hole there, and there's a jewel which is held in by a spring, and you oil that, so you expect to see some oil in there, and we will obviously clean all that out. So I'll now remove all of the components. I seriously think that hair will have had a lot to do with it. And is that another one, or is that just no? So remove everything else, and we'll look at the main plate itself once everything's been taken off. Before I strip everything off, I just wanted to show you this. So this sort of brass part you can see here is the hacking lever. So for those of you who don't know what hacking is or don't understand how it works, so some mechanical watches, when you pull the crown out, it stops the second hand, and that allows you to set the watch as accurately as possible to the nearest second, of course. And it's quite a simple device really. It's on this end I've removed it now, but on the other side of this is where the clutch is, and the clutch is has the stem going through it, and then out this hole here would be the crown. So when you pull the crown, it pulls the clutch, or it pushes the clutch in onto the wheels, and you can set the time. What this lever does, so if we go around this side, so this is the escape wheel, which you can, let me find my little oil again. So this is the escape wheel. It's out of focus, there we are. And when you pull the crown, this then moves. Oops, I can't do it because I've moved it up, but it would move to touch the escape, and then it would stop the entire movement. And then when you push the crown back in, that lever would, it's probably not going to do it because I can't do it via my camera. There we go. That would go back there, and obviously the movement would keep going. So it's quite simple in its mechanics. So I've never really understood why the vintage Seiko don't fit this to more watches. Even some of the watches of today, I've got a fairly modern Seiko 5. It's only a few years old, and that doesn't have hacking. And you think you go to all the extent of engineering these things, but you don't add this as a feature. And if it's down to cost, well, I can't believe it costs all that much. Okay, you have to machine this recess into the bridge here, but you know, if you could do that, no problem. So it's a bit strange really. I've just noticed there's some gunk as well on the escape wheel. So if we're talking about what stops a watch, there is some more gunk on the escape, and the escape is pivotal to how the thing works. So having that interfere with all the other wheels is not good at all. So I now have everything stripped off the movement, and we're just left with the main plate. And the last inspection I do before I put it through the wash is to inspect all the jewels, make sure they're not cracked or broken at all. But we're just looking for dirt. So this is where the centre wheel goes, and the centre wheel is quite important because that's driving most of the hands in various ways. The fourth wheel runs through the centre wheel, and you want good friction through that jewel there, hence there is a bit of dried oil. So again, that's going to hamper the operation of that. We have another jewel over here which is for the third wheel, and that's covered in gunk on this side, and it also looks like it might have a little hair there as well, so that's again not very good. That one looks pretty clean, and again there's some dirt in there. So all these things add up. This is where the balance would go. All of those things add up. I'll just flip it over to the other side. You can see from the calendar works, because obviously all the wheels go through to that side one way or another. There's the centre jewel. Although that looks a bit strange, that's fine. And these two, which are under the these are the diafix again. These are my little nemesis. Those springs tend to go flying, but there we go. Under that one, you see, that's a lot of dried oil, so I'll have to remove that and clean all that out and refit it. I really don't enjoy these on Seiko. I wish that the little horseshoe type clip that you can see there was held in a better way. You have to, I'm not going to do it now, but you have to push this back a little bit and lift it up to get the jewel out. And whilst on the microscope it looks big, I can assure you these things are almost pinhead size. They're tiny. So to handle them, to clean them, to then actually oil them and put them back in place in the right position, I find extremely difficult. If any professionals are out there watching, you've got a tip for me of how to attack these in a safer manner, then please leave a message in the comments. I'd really appreciate it. So there we go. So it was a very impromptu video. This, I was just starting to strip this one down, and I noticed a bit of dirt, and I thought, well, you know, I'll make a video out of it and share it for you guys. So if you did like the video, give me a thumbs up, please. It does mean a lot. And if you want to see more, of course, then please like and subscribe. And don't forget to join the Facebook group, Retro and Vintage Watches and Restorations. The group has grown very big. We're nearly at our first year. And there's a lot of help, a lot of advice, and a hell of a lot of watch content in there. A lot of great guys as well. So I hope to see you in there soon. Thank you. Goodbye.